Hey, lots of bots back here. Okay, so we're going to be on the providers and tips and tricks in using signal push service. The first thing that we see that they have instituted is their provider leaderboard. Now, they did a fantastic job, I must say. And the polish and the look and feel of the site is just absolutely better than I even imagined. And this is exactly the way I pictured in my mind, kind of like what I would like to see as a user or client. Um, and they have a list right here, as you see, from top to bottom of the provider leaderboard to see how the different providers are doing. It provides you information as far as overall how they're doing from when they started and monthly to see how they're doing monthly. Now, the first one up is binary options VIC. Now, we'll notice that there's a little asterisk next to the name. I want you to keep note of that because that's an interesting point, and I was thinking about it. And that basically states that they're using a martingale system. She uses a two-step martingale, and that's basically after a loss, she will then double up on her trade on the second trade. And that's not necessarily even true. I've seen her take trades where she doubles up just after a win, just because she likes the trade, maybe. She has a very high win rate, so there's nothing wrong with this. But that's basically what that is. Now, I before she had listed like 120%, and it did look kind of retarded, so they took that down because you can't technically go over 100%. But that's what that is. That's because she's using a two-step martingale. And let's click on her name and see what information we could find out about binary options VIC. Well, we go here through signal push and we see about binary options VIC. She uses 60 seconds and it tells a little bit about, her setup. She uses high probability setups. She doesn't trade a lot. She goes for the best trades available. That's fantastic. Her recommended broker is B options. Um, and her subscription insurance is 65%, which is very high, and that's fantastic as well. Um, as well, it lists an option for getting a free month and so forth, as we discussed before. Let's look at her performance. Okay, now this is going to become an issue in the future, and I hope it doesn't become a negative issue because of the way they do calculations. There's a martingale now available to you. Now with martingale, it's going to list her win percentage as 100%, right? Because this win right here, for example, cancels out this loss. That's what they're stating with that. And it could even be higher because you can double up on this win right here, which was after a win, of which now you're doubled up and you're actually over 100%, right? Because it becomes exponential. Now, there's a negative to that. That's not necessarily the real performance. The real performance would be regular. That would deduct the wins and losses and not counting the size. And if they use that in the future to balance out your subscription insurance, what that basically means, you could have a double loss and the previous one was a loss as well. Now you could have three losses in a row, and or you could have a win that was for half the amount, and your loss is doubled. That could be a negative. That's gonna might cause an issue in the future. If you're performing well, it's not an issue. But if there's an imbalance and you actually are showing with the martingales 70 or 65% win rate, but your actual win rate with the regular calculations is less, more like 60, and they go under that amount, how do they calculate the subscription insurance? So be aware of that in the future. That might come up because it's a statistical uh, imbalance that I can see possibly coming out in the future. But this shows their real win performance, not including the martingale and so forth. And so that's a nice feature. You can see the performance of the providers. It tells a little about them. It shows how much they charge and stuff. And let's go back to the provider leaderboard. Now you see you have a whole list of providers here. Deep ITM signals, they look like they're doing well. Cambridge, I know he does well. He always trades fairly well. He's had a hard time recently, but still 63% overall. That's very good. And so you can choose through all these different providers and find out about them by clicking on their names, like Cambridge here. And you can see their performance. And if they have a website, you can go to their website to find out also more information and keep abreast on what's going on with them. As well, Signal Push went over and did something interesting here, which after the whole Cherry Coke debacle, which in the chat rooms we just make fun of it now because every time you have a losing trade, we say, "Oh, Cherry Coke that one," or "You got screwed over." We say, "You got Cherry Coked." So that was such a bad event that luckily Signal Push said, "Well, we can't have that occur." So you know what we should do? We should have them in beta, so we don't look bad and we don't cause problems in the future. They created a beta section for providers. It's like an incubation period of which they can perform and try their strategies, and if they do well, then they can go live and start providing signals for people, which I think was a fantastic idea. I wonder where they got that from. Okay, so they basically, you can see just like with the regular provider leaderboard, here's your beta provider leaderboard. You can see who's in first place and find out a little bit about them and their performance. Okay, they just list their performance. They don't list anything about them. Nope, just performance. Okay, that's fine. All right, so we see everything here that we need to see. So you have a beta section of which providers that are up and coming can be tested first. And one of the things I did note that I didn't really care for very much is they let a provider that I'm enthusiastic about. I think he'll do well. He's very passionate about trading, but he had a new system that he had, Vortex, and it's based off of 2 days of results. They're allowing him to do that live within his regular performance. I would recommend against that. If he has a new system, it should be a new provider, and you should allow him to add that to a new provider account for that performance. I don't know why he would want to connect it to his previous performance, as that's taking away from what he's doing now. So that's kind of a dumb thing to do, in my opinion. But he wants to get up and running fast and just get people to subscribe. He's not looking at the longer term picture, the forest through the trees. He rushes too much. He applies a martingale. He uses an extreme deviation reversal method, which is kind of like trading access. And he trades very well, and he's very passionate. I think he's going to do well as a provider in the future. So I'm going to say watch him and go for him. I think what he's doing right now is just he's rushing it a little bit too much. I would want to separate my new results away from my prior results because it's a totally different system, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, I think so. But anyway, so that's Vortex there. I would keep an eye out for him, and I think he's going to do well.
Tips and tricks using Signal Push. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas that will help you do well using Signal Push as well as avoid some of the pitfalls that you might come across. Tip number one, VPS. VPS is a virtual private server, kind of like your computer at home. When you're running the Signal Push software, you want it to always be functioning connected to the web page, right? Well, using your computer at home, your family members might turn off the computer or any number of things. Power outage can happen just from normal use. You want to have one of these virtual private servers. They're usually stored in warehouses or data centers around the globe, and they look like this on the inside. It's very rack-mounted servers, very clean room-esque type of environment, always run by network engineers. And this one, for example, has a built-in putting green in case, you want to play miniature golf to keep them entertained. But in reality, most of them really look like this right here, and at least the ones that I've worked on and set up. That's generally what they are. Now, you're not going to pay more than $15 to $20 a month, and if anybody tells you to pay more than that, ask them why, because honestly, the application is so minimal, and all you're doing is connecting it to a web page. your use is so small that you don't need to pay more than $20 a month. That's ridiculous. If they try to, then they're just they're gouging you, price gouging you on that. So keep that in mind. All right, tip number two. In choosing signal providers, you pretty much there's a baseline that you want to use. Since payouts are going to range between like 70 to up to 85%, sometimes even higher, your baseline should be 60%. That's going to differentiate a winning trader from a non-winning trader, or a pro from a non-pro. So that's number one. Make sure they're at 60 or higher percentage-wise. That's the real dividing line right there. Now, I'm going to give you a trick here that I've used with FX robots. You can use this with signal providers just as well. Um, I had a robot that went up to like 3,000% return. And what I do on robots is after I get my original investment back, I then take the original investment out and then diversify it into another robot. And I keep jumping and growing this way. You can do the same thing with signal providers. You, let's say, put 1,000 in binary options FIC, you get 100% return. Then you take that and you put it into deep ITM signals and you get 100% return from there. And then you put that into Cambridge and so on and so forth, and you keep on growing. As one provider is doing well, it will make up for the ones that don't do well. And this is a way that you can grow and keep profiting no matter what happens from one to the other. All right, the best tip, tricks, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to give you in this video is this right here, NGFR. Apply this to all your trading with signal providers or even your own personal trading. And that simply is never go full retard. I see far too many people going full retard when it comes to trading. And that's exactly what you don't want to do. And it takes discipline and time to learn how not to do that. Example being like Cherry Coke. This luckily now we have a beta section for signal push. But who comes out and says 3.99 special pricing, join now, are you in? With these high pressure marketing and so forth. Who does that to people and tells them that special pricing is 3.99? The only thing special about that pricing, in my opinion, were the people who signed up to it. Uh, these people here who signed up for Cherry Coke, they're special. Special education. So the next time somebody wants to make you rich on signal push with their SP, um, give them a couple weeks to a month and see how they perform over time because, you know, don't go full retard. Don't go rushing into it. I mean, that's what it looks like. What you see right there is what it looks like to me when I'm looking at you guys sign on for Cherry Coke. That was just ridiculous. And then here's what happens later when, the results are in. That's what you look like to me later on. So don't wind up in the binary boneyard and, falling for hype and whatnot. Watch their results. They will prove themselves today. They can prove themselves tomorrow. So take your time. Don't rush. A good thing today is a good thing tomorrow. Let's just put it that way. Until next time, this is Lots of Bots. I hope you've enjoyed this video.
Everybody knows you never go full retard. You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.